I fear not the dark itself, but what may lurk within it. Welcome to Lurk, bringing you creepy, strange, and bone-chilling stories, with your hosts, Tim Harrison and Jamie Jackson.
Hey Lurkers, it's Jamie.
And Tim. So, Jamie, what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about the Phoenix Lights.
Like the baseball team?
Is there a baseball team called the Phoenix Lights?
No, it's...
the Suns, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a basketball team.
Do you like how I knew that?
So, what's the Phoenix Lights?
So, Phoenix Lights, I didn't really know a whole lot about this. This was a Tim special. I didn't really know much about the Phoenix Lights. Angelina knew about the Phoenix Lights. Pointed me in the right direction. That's how I found all my stuff.
Agent A for the dub.
Right, yes. She's my go-to for UFO alien stuff.
She's a baller.
Yes.
She's a baller.
I'm going to start out by saying that when I started reading information about this, I was like, this is a total BS thing. It's not true, and we're going to talk about it, and it's totally explainable. And nothing weird about it whatsoever.
Let's go then, Jamie. We're going to have a good conversation.
That's how I started.
All right. Fair.
That's not how I finished, but that's how I started.
Oh, no. Everyone starts that way. I'll be honest.
That's how I started with it. Well, see, that's not always how I start, because usually I try to look at things open-mindedly, a little bit skeptical, but I always have a little bit of a bias towards the paranormal.
That's fair.
Because I believe it.
That's fair.
So it's not like I go into it trying to disprove something or not thinking it's going to be paranormal because I don't believe in it. I believe in the paranormal, obviously, or I wouldn't be doing a paranormal podcast. So I have a little bit of a slant towards believing the story already when I start. I started reading this, I'm like, this is BS.
All right, BS.
That's not how I ended, but that's how I started.
Okay.
So in looking at this, we're going to go a little bit before when the actual what is referred to as the Phoenix Lights event happened, just because it's important to have a little bit of background with this.
Okay.
1995. So the Phoenix Lights happened, I believe it was 1997. So 2 years before, 1995. There's a doctor. Her name is Dr. Lynn Ketai.
Wow.
Yeah. He butchered it.
I butchered it hard.
I only know because she was in a documentary and said her name.
Sorry, Ketai.
Yeah, it's not spelled anywhere close to how it's said. She was at her house. It kind of sits up above Phoenix. It's part of Phoenix, but she can see the Phoenix skyline where she is. And she witnessed 3 amber-colored orbs in a triangle formation hovering over an area she said was private desert. She said they were about 3 to 6 feet each, kind of oval-shaped, uniform color, no glare, had a total different appearance than the lights of the city. So, she even mentioned when you look at the city lights, there is like a glare. The lights are glare. She says there was nothing like that with these lights.
Okay.
She also commented that they kind of had a soothing or mesmerizing. They had a soothing or mesmerizing effect, and everything was kind of eerily silent.
Okay.
And then nothing was seen for 2 years. She didn't see anything for 2 years.
So it just goes silent. After that eerie event, it goes...
Yeah. January 22nd, 1997. This is still not the event. We're still 3 months prior to the actual event.
I'm officially 1 year and 6 days old at that time.
Yeah, there's things that happen, and I'm not even going to bother asking about it because I knew you weren't going to have any idea. Because there's something else I'm going to talk about before we talk about the event, I think. I don't know. I'm not sure where I'm sticking it in, but it's kind of important in a way. Shut up. I swear to God. If you say that's what she said, I will slap you in the face. January 22nd, 1997, Dr. Ketai saw 3 orbs on the horizon. They were amber in color again, flying in formation in front of South Mountain, and it was around 8 p.m. She said some of the orbs would disappear but then reappear, and then 6 more orbs showed up. She took photo or video of this. She actually had the foresight to video this phenomena. So she called the local Air Force Base, Luke Air Force Base, and they kind of were like, we don't have anything in the air. They're very short with her. It's not ours. We don't have anything in the air right now. And she's like, well, I just want to know I'm just curious what's going on. And so they suggested call air traffic control at the airport. That's in their airspace, the area she was describing. So she does finally get in touch with somebody at the airport. And they said, yeah, there were 3 objects at 8 p.m. At 8:30, there were 6 more objects, and none of them showed up on the radar. So there were 6 points of light. They seemed to be attached to something because they were moving in tandem together.
I mean, those lights, if you watch the video, you can see like a rough outline.
Yeah, she took a video. There's lots of video. There's lots of stuff out there on this. So we're now at the main event. The actual Phoenix Lights.
Here we go.
March 13th, 1997. They started around 7:30 is what it said. It went on for several hours. All right, so March 13th, 97, strange bright lights were seen over Nevada, Arizona, and part of Mexico. Actually, wasn't just Arizona.
That's a massive area to cover.
Huge area. It wasn't just one event. It was several events across Arizona, and they lasted several hours, like I said.
Yeah, so this isn't a quick like bloop, bloop.
No, it was not quick. Not by any means whatsoever. People saw what they described as a wide V-shaped formation of lights that were silent, and they were witnessed by commercial pilots, air traffic controllers, police, and thousands of others. So basically the point in bringing up those, it was witnessed by people who were in the know.
Yeah.
They are reputable people who have to maintain their reputation, who also are knowledgeable about aircraft in that area, and that's my point in bringing up those specifics.
Okay.
So basically, we're just going to discuss different accounts of the same basic event, more or less is what we're talking. This was one event. This is not like it's a little different than the other stuff that we've talked about.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great thing too, is that this all was shot on the same night. Mm-hmm. This is all shot at different viewpoints. But that just should tell you how massive.
This was a massive sighting.
Yeah, this isn't something like where some people they're on a small area and they take a picture of a very small shiny object. Like, this is such a massive event that I believe like multiple highly reputable people at that time actually didn't know what was going on either, and they saw.
Oh yeah. They were people who should know what was going on and had no explanation.
Yep.
So, one witness said they saw 3 enormous lights floating incredibly slow towards him, and they appeared attached to something that was several football fields long overhead. He could see the lights clearly, and he mentioned there was no filament wire. So if you look at a light bulb, and some people aren't going to know what we're talking about because light bulbs are now totally
LED,
different.
Yep.
They're LED and everything. So light bulbs had filament wire inside them, and he said there was no filament wire at all. It looked like the light was swimming around in the orb, which is incredibly weird.
Yes.
In 97, that's not something...
Still weird now.
It's still weird now, but it would have been even weirder back then. When we
Correct.
still had incandescent light bulbs. So, a commercial pilot, this person had 40 plus years of experience, also served as a military helicopter and fighter pilot, said that he saw the lights. He said the object had no navigation or anti-collision lights, and it was moving too slow to stay in the air if it was a conventional aircraft. This thing, that's one thing everybody does say, that it was moving incredibly slow. That was something they kept mentioning, how slow this thing moved.
And that's something to definitely, I think, people need to understand. Again, this, was not, and I'm going to keep repeating this because it's crazy to think about it, though, because not a lot of people either A, know about this, or B, they think it's like, it was there for 5 seconds. Like, no, this was over several hours.
Yes.
It moved very slow, and most importantly, it wasn't small. Like, it was massive.
It was a mile wide.
Yeah.
It was a mile wide. So this same pilot, he said it was 5 lights that were in a V formation, and that the lights were locked in position and moving in tandem. And he believed it was one aircraft, and said the lights resembled can lights and had no harsh glare. So a can light is a recessed light, kind of. Some buildings will have a light recessed like in the ceiling. That's what he's saying as far as can lights go.
Yeah, it's a cylinder that it shines
sits in.
through.
Yeah. He also said there was no harsh glare. So the lights that Dr. Kitai had seen previously, there was no harsh glare. She mentioned there was no glare, which was different than like the Phoenix skyline. The lights all described were amber, or they said like orange, which is amber, like a yellow orange. And they were uniformly round and equidistant from each other.
Equidistant?
Which means they are...
Equidistant?
Equidistant.
Equidistant.
The same distance. equally.
Oh, God.
There was a retired police officer who was one of the witnesses that had come forward, and he said he saw lights floating in the sky. There were 5 lights, and he actually said there were 2 trailing lights that looked like they were docking and undocking and hanging over the valley, which is similar to what Dr. Kitai had explained back in January. She saw a similar type thing. Yeah.
And Kitai and the police officer don't know each other.
No,
Okay, putting it out there.
Yeah.
Putting it out there.
Another witness stated he watched a boomerang-shaped object glide over Granite Mountain and that the thing was at least a mile wide and there was no way it was from this planet. It was totally silent. It was as big as downtown Prescott, Arizona, and completely blocked out the stars.
Absolutely mammoth.
Yeah. And that is one thing that some people just said they saw the lights in a V formation. Some people said they saw a boomerang-shaped craft, which... Still a V type formation, but some people actually said they saw the craft for the most part themselves and that it did block out the stars, so that there is something in between the lights. There is some object that the lights are attached to.
Yeah, solid object that's going through.
Right. There were some hospice workers. They were outside. They saw a huge, dark, silent object above their heads, and they couldn't see the entire object because it was so large. So they could only see a portion of it. They couldn't see either end because it was too big. And then this was one account that I kind of liked. It was an 11-year-old boy, and he was leaving his Cub Scout meeting. And some people would be like, really? Like 11-year-old? 11-year-old boy's getting ready to join the Boy Scout troop. He's probably in 5th or 6th grade. Totally has the wherewithal to be able to describe something accurately and be an accurate eyewitness, speaking as a scout leader. Just saying.
I was going to leave it alone.
I
was going to leave it alone.
No, just saying.
Just a little bias here, just a little.
Just a little.
Just a little.
So this 11-year-old boy said he saw something that looked like a stealth bomber, which again is that same boomerang or V-shaped. And he said because it was triangle shaped and it had 3 lights and was moving very, very slowly there for 2 to 3 minutes. And then the lights went out one by one. Again, also like Dr. Kitai had described, she said the lights would disappear and then turn off and turn back on. Basically. There was an unidentified crewman from Luke Air Force Base that claimed 2 jets were actually scrambled during this, and that one of the pilots stated that they had a visual on it, they've got gun camera film of it, and they had no radar tape of it. It scared the hell out of them.
Okay.
And during all of this, there was a city council member, former Vice Mayor Frances Barwood. And she figures prominently in this because this was talked about. So many people saw this and nobody knew what it was. She was approached by reporters before a council meeting and they're like, what is going on? What was this thing? What's being done? Or is anybody looking into it? So she goes into the meeting. She feels that her constituents obviously want answers.
Correct.
Nobody's trying to provide any. So she goes into the council. She questions what's being done to look into what happened the other night. And the mayor says, we don't have UFOs over Phoenix. She pointed out she didn't call it a UFO. That's not what she said. She just simply asked about the incident. Is anything being done to look into the incident the other night? Then later, somebody pulled her aside and told her she shouldn't have asked the question because it was something the council didn't want to deal with.
Too bad, get over it.
Yeah. She felt it was a matter of public safety, and it was an issue with airspace safety. The airport is right there. It was seen over the airport. It was seen over the whole flippin' city. So if there's a giant object in the sky, a mile wide, and you've got a busy airport, and I think there's 2 Air Force bases in the area, you would want to know what's up there that could be getting in the way.
Or maybe... I gotta make sure I keep this family friendly. How about we don't give a fudge about the airport? How about why is it going over the city?
Yeah, the entire city. But I'm just saying, she was saying this, trying to pull away from the whole UFO thing. She's just saying, obviously there's a safety issue here.
Yeah, something's happening.
We don't know what was going on, and we have a busy airport, and it's not on radar. And if it's an object, it's obviously going to be a problem with incoming or outgoing airplanes. Don't we want to know what the heck it was? She actually wrote a letter to Senator John McCain asking what was going on. And McCain basically sent a letter to the National Archives and then she got a copy. Basically, when you send a letter to the National Archives, they archive it. It's filed. It's not sent to them for any other reason other than to file it away. So all he was doing was placating her. She basically was ridiculed in the media. There were political cartoons about her.
It must suck really worrying about other people's safety.
Yeah, apparently there was a cartoon of her with a UFO flying in one ear and out the other, and all these other crazy political cartoons.
If I'll put this out there, if you are a person that has a media influence, right, and somebody who clearly in this situation, now there is some people that just say some crazy off the wall stuff, but this individual clearly had a wherewithal to worried about others, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, I'm not calling it a UFO. I'm not calling it, what is it? Unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAF or whatever. UAP. We're not worried about none of that. How are you handling it? That's all I'm asking is, hey, what just happened? How do you handle it? Right. And the fact that she didn't have to elaborate means that they knew what was going on. They knew what they knew what's going to be said.
Oh, it was in the papers at this point. Yeah.
So for people to take it upon themselves to ridicule her, just shame on you. Like, that's the best way to say that. Like, honestly, at that point in time, she's not out here saying, "Oh, they took me up and they probed me 5 different ways Sunday."
The words alien and UFO never were part of what she was asked.
She's just like, "Hey, what about our safety?
What the heck was going on?"
Yeah.
I have other notes written down that she actually asked for an Air Force investigation. She also, and this was part of UFO Hunters. I don't even think that show's still on anymore.
No. Did you hear about them?
What, during their episode about this?
No, like
or what,
them,
in
period.
General? No.
Oh, we gotta talk offline about that.
I used to watch the show a little bit back in the day, but I watched a little bit of their episode about the Phoenix Lights, which I think is it's season 2, episode 6, I believe, which isn't written down. I just remembered that. So
I like how you picked up on the Tim thing here. I ain't gonna read it. I'm just gonna watch it.
Yeah, that's the quickest way to do.
Yes.
They've already done a lot of research, so sometimes that's the quickest way. I did read actual newspaper accounts, however. I did pull up, because that's the best way for me to get factual information. Well, I use factual loosely because it's the media, but it's the quickest way to pull up information at that specific time, accounts of what happened.
Correct.
And I only say question the factual nature of it because some of what I'm going to talk about here actually disproves some information that was in the newspaper type of thing. So that's why I'm saying that. She was asked if she felt there was an organized cover-up, and she said yes, because, it was like they immediately started attacking her about it. And all she was doing, people who put her into office had questions and wanted answers, and she was trying to do what a political figure is supposed to do and act on behalf of the people who put her in office. And that's all she did was say, what the heck was going on here the other night? Thousands of people saw this thing. What's going on?
How dare she do the right thing?
I know.
How dare she?
I know. So at the same time, the governor at the time was Fife Symington. He had a press conference, and then he had a press conference later. And he said, we have caught the culprit. Let me introduce you to the person behind this whole thing. And out comes one of his staff members in an alien costume. So I'm going to say that. But now we're going to listen to what really happened with the governor. Because even though he had that press conference and basically made fun of everything, he actually witnessed what happened. He witnessed the lights himself.
March 13th, 1997. This event called Lights Over Phoenix. What did you see?
Well, I saw a huge craft just kind of come right over Squaw Peak. That was, it was just breathtaking. And I'm not sure about the date. You've got a better memory
March
for the
13th.
dates than I do. Yeah.
But there was no, like the Clinton day, no.
No. No, I was on a strict diet. No, I'm serious now. That it was unquestionably it was a UFO, which means unidentified flying object.
Right. Doesn't mean we're being visited.
Well, it's nothing like anything I've ever seen.
And you're an Air Force guy.
Yeah, and a pilot. Got a lot of hours flying, so it was pretty breathtaking. And I'll never forget. I snuck out to see it. without DPS, which I'm not supposed to be driving my own car and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, but I told Ann what I was doing. I was going to go up to Squaw Peak and see what everybody was, clamoring about. And when I walked in the front door, she looked at me, and I was apparently normally I'm fair complected and pale anyway, right? And she said, "Oh my gosh," she said, "she looked like a ghost. What did you see?" And I said, "Well, I don't know what I saw, but it was really something, and I'm not going to talk about it." And
Wow.
so,
Did it frighten you?
No, I think I was kind of in awe, really,
How big?
Bigger than anything I've ever seen in the sky.
Like an aircraft carrier in the sky?
Yeah. Something like that, yeah. And it was hard to define because of the light in terms of the size, but it was absolutely silent and had sort of eerie embedded lights, and so that's what I saw. And I wasn't expecting to see anything because I was looking out over at Luke to the west, and then all of a sudden these people in the park area just on the west side of 51, there were a bunch of people there. Everybody said, "Oh, look at that." And we turned around, and this thing was coming from the northwest, traveling to the southeast.
We now know, and it really hit me when we were watching the Diamondbacks in Game 7, and the B-1 flew over the pod.
It wasn't a B-1 bomber.
But that thing all of a sudden out of nowhere appears. And, I said to somebody that night, I said, well, when they do test these, they test them in populated areas. They're new stuff. They test it to see if people detect it. Do you believe it was ours? Do you believe it was something from the U.S. government that they were kind of flying around?
No, it wasn't even close to a B. It was much bigger than a B-1. A B-1 actually isn't that big.
Right.
I mean, if it's at low altitude, it'll appear big, but no, this was totally different.
Something, though, that you think our own government may have been kind of running by a populated area to see what would happen?
Well, they certainly achieved their goal of stirring the pot, if that's what they were doing. But I don't think so. I think this was technologically far advanced. I use the analogy. Can you imagine if you took Christopher Columbus and put him in the cockpit of a Boeing 777? What his reaction would be? He wouldn't understand it. He would be convinced that this is something from another world,
Is that what?
And I think I really believe that. I believe that. But I've always been open to that. We're not alone in the universe.
I agree with you.
We're going to find that out one way or the other. Even Bill Clinton was talking about that the other day on the national news.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I do believe that we're not alone. I just don't know that we've been visited. But you think maybe that night we were?
I think so, yeah. There have been so many different sort of sightings and inexplicable phenomena that, but the disparity in terms of technological progress would be so vast that we would be, I think, of sort of no consequence to whoever is visiting us, because the technology to get here would be just beyond anything we could imagine.
Did it hover?
No, it was just going in a straight line.
Slow pace?
Yeah, slow pace, yeah. And then, there were all the sightings. Flares. There were the sightings of the America West plane coming into Sky Harbor, said he could have landed on it.
It was enormous.
Yeah.
Like an aircraft carrier in the sky? Is that about as close as you could?
I think that's a fair description,
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Maybe it's our next generation we're working on. Who knows?
Well, we'll find out it someday.
This was a Fox 10 Phoenix interview from 2014.
What a joke.
I don't think he is. This is not the only interview that
No, I mean, but he ridiculed into somebody. Then
he did, but he says in another interview that I listened to, he specifically states that he regrets that happened. At the time, there were thousands of people who saw this. So he was concerned that there would be panic. And that he was trying to put a spin on it to keep it more light and jovial and not a holy crap, ET's coming and they're taking over the planet. You got to remember when Orson Welles did his radio show, neither one of us were alive then. I just know about this. Just to put it out there, I'm not that old. That Orson Welles did the radio show War of the Worlds.
Yes.
People flipped the hell out
They
because
did.
they thought it was real and that aliens were invading and attacking. And that was a fictional thing that was going on. This was an actual object that people saw flying over the city, Nobody knows what the heck it is. People who should know what it is don't know what it is. And in his mind, he's trying to keep the people from flipping out.
By ruining a person, though?
He didn't ruin her. I just brought it up in association with her. He didn't have anything to do with Barwood. He was totally separate. That was just, he had a news conference, because he's the governor. She's on the city council level. So they're totally separate from one another. It's just that he came out with one press conference and said kind of they were looking in, like trying to answer questions about it. And then he had a later press conference that wasn't really announced. It was kind of a impromptu thing. And that's when he did the alien thing. It didn't have anything to do with her at all or her questions. Now, the mayor and the council of Phoenix ridiculed her, and the local Phoenix papers and everything, they ridiculed her, but that didn't have anything to do with him. They were separate. It's just that he was making light of what went on, but witnessed it. And even mentioned in there that apparently, and it was an account that I didn't find, but he mentions there was a pilot coming into the airport who said it was so big he could have landed on it. I don't know if you caught that near the end. I did. And that's how he's describing it, like an aircraft carrier in the sky. Aircraft carriers are flippin' huge. They're like floating cities. They're huge. I just wanted to include his
He's a
account.
butt cheek. That's all I gotta say.
He made a mistake in doing that press conference. I wasn't sure. I kind of like I said, I went into this thinking it was BS. Kind of chuckled at his press conference because I'm like, yeah, it's BS. Later, in looking into things, I believe his reasoning behind doing that press conference is accurate. I don't think he meant to be malicious or anything. I think he was doing it for the right reasons, not the wrong ones. And I believe his accounts, because he actually, this is just one interview that I listened to. He was on several other things discussing, and he actually brings up the news conference and the other ones, but this was the better, I picked which one had the best descriptions. This was the better interview to include. There are other interviews and clips out there of him talking.
The fact that the pilot said he could land on it.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's wild.
That's huge. So anyway, there was a 911 operator who said that the 911 center was actually inundated with calls about the lights that night. They all shared the same description. Most people weren't afraid. There wasn't really any fear or panic going on, which was a little surprising. She said most of them were amazed and wanted just to know, wanted
what is it?
Answers. Later in the media, it said that there were only a few calls to 911. She mentioned that she told her supervisor that's not true. There were hundreds of calls. Like, they received hundreds of calls about this, but it was downplayed in the media saying, oh, there were only a few calls. But that wasn't the case. They had tons of calls coming in describing the same thing. Thousands witnessed this event, and it's considered the largest sighting because of the number of witnesses and the length of the sighting. So this is considered one of the biggest UFO sightings
ever.
At least in the U.S., but probably ever, because of the number of people. And you may wonder why everybody might have been witnessing this, why there were so many people who witnessed this. And this is what you're not going to remember, because you weren't even a year old, probably. At the time, the Hale-Bopp comet was visible in the sky, and it's only visible about every 2,000 years, so you won't ever get to see it, sorry. Unless you live to be 2,000 years old.
Okay.
Everybody was looking, you could just see it with the naked eye. You didn't need anything to be able to view the comet. So anybody could go outside, look up, and see it. I saw it. It's pretty cool. That explains why so many people were outside looking up when this happened, because everybody was outside looking up to see the comet. Also interesting, and I'm gonna add this in here with this comet, there was actually a cult called the Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
It had been around for a while under many different names. This is the name it was at the end. They believed that they were angels who had been sent to Earth, and now they were going to move to a higher level on the ethereal spaceship.
They were going to ascend.
Yes, to the ethereal spaceship, and that spaceship was hiding in the tail of the Hale-Bopp comet. So they committed mass suicide in California somewhere around March 19th to 20th of 1997.
A little creepy, huh?
Yep, because they believed there was a UFO in the comet that was coming to get them.
A little creepy.
Yeah, and then everybody sees this. I'm not saying that they were right in this giant spaceship, because this spaceship was way bigger than that whatever was in the tail of that comet.
Well, yeah. Well, blind squirrel finds a nut.
Yeah.
Blind squirrel finds a nut.
Yeah. But that was going on. This comet thing, just trying to put it in perspective, it was a big deal. I mean, like, I remembered. And it was talked about because of this cult. Like, I made jokes like, oh, I think I see the UFO. I mean, like, I don't remember the Phoenix Lights, but I remember the comet, and everybody, you went out there and you looked up at that comet every night because it was the coolest thing, and you were never going to see it again because it only comes around about every 2,000 years.
How many nights was it visible?
I don't remember how long it was. I didn't look that up, but it was more than one night. I mean, like, it was over a period of time it was visible.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It just like circled the Earth?
I don't know or it comes around the Earth and then it takes back off in space, and eventually in 2,000 years it'll come back around.
Nice.
Yeah. Actor Kurt Russell claimed to have seen the phenomena. He claimed to have been one of the pilots that reported it.
I love me a Kurt Russell.
I like Kurt Russell. He said that he remembered it because Goldie Hawn apparently is a huge UFO enthusiast. And she watches documentaries on, that sort of thing. So she was watching a UFO documentary, and he came in the room, and they were talking about the Phoenix Lights in this documentary. He is listening to, to this, and he said, wait a minute. I think I saw that. He goes and he gets his logbook because he's a pilot, he flies his own personal plane. And he gets his logbook, and it didn't have the specific details, but it did have that he flew into Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix that night in question, the same date that this happened. And he said basically he was taking his son to go see his girlfriend who lived in Phoenix. They were on approach, and he saw 6 lights over the airport, and they were absolutely uniform in a V shape, and radioed to the tower, that what's on your radar, and the tower's like, we don't have anything on radar. And he says, well, this is what I'm seeing. They like, well, do you want to report a UFO? And he goes, well, I don't know. I don't know what it is. So I guess it's a, UFO. He says, this is just what I'm seeing. So anyway, that's the gist. So in 2014, there was a Washington Post article that actually said Arizona has the highest number of UFO sightings per capita in the United States.
Which does not surprise me.
I would have thought it was maybe Washington or, I don't know, Utah. But
I feel like Utah people don't talk that much.
Yeah, they're pretty tight-lipped, I would imagine. But that I mentioned in the Skinwalker Ranch, the Four Corners region of the United States. That's Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico. Those are the 4. I couldn't remember the 4 states. Those are the 4 states that all meet together.
I would probably even say also California would because just the dense population wise, California and Florida I thought they might be up there, but also Arizona, a lot of retirees go there. So all you're doing is like this.
For those who couldn't see what Tim was doing, he was leaning back in his chair looking up. That's because they can't see you doing this.
Hey Karen, you think we're gonna be up there someday? I don't know, Paul.
And UFO sightings are common in the Phoenix area. They're actually reported multiple times a year in Phoenix. Not uncommon. Anyway, during this event, the military was asked, because like I said, there are a couple of Air Force bases. Luke Air Force Base is the closest.
Correct.
So the military was asked what the heck is going on, and they repeatedly said that nothing was in the air that night. And then all of a sudden, they remember, oh, wait a minute, we had a National Guard unit from Maryland, of all places, visiting, and they were dropping flares. And they forgot to check with the visiting military groups to see what they were doing. At first, when I first heard the flare account, I was like, nope, that's what this is. It's easily explained. This is flares. This is so ridiculous that I'm even spending time researching this because it's flares. And then I found the article in the newspaper about them saying repeatedly that nothing was there, and then saying that they had forgotten to ask the visiting military groups what they were doing. And I'm sorry, but if you're on a military base and you're doing things, they know what you're doing.
Yes, they do.
It's not a secret.
Nope.
They know what's being run. They have to know what you're doing so that they know what they can and can't do in a certain area. So I'm sorry. So that explanation was ridiculous. Like, after I started looking into it, it was like, oh. Anyway, there were quite a few witnesses who had a military background, and they all said flares did not explain what the majority of people saw. Some people did see something, and it could have been, if they had actually been dropping flares, what some people reported could have accounted for the flares, because they claimed they were dropping the flares within a certain time frame. The reports of sightings spanned outside of this time frame. So right there, discounted immediately, assuming they dropped flares. We're going to assume that they did. I don't think they did, but we're going to assume that. If these people with military background said flares did not explain what they saw, because what they saw was moving across the horizon. It was moving horizontally with the Earth, and flares travel vertically towards the Earth. They are traveling down from the sky. They're dropped out of a plane, and they are traveling down. Pyrotechnic and film experts examined the photos and videos. There were tons of photos and videos of this event. If you search it, you can find it. Go look for it. YouTube. Yeah. YouTube's got a ton.
I think, honestly, you type Phoenix and put L, it pops up.
Oh, yeah. They pointed out that flares, the pyrotechnic guy said, flares have a distinct smoke trail. There is a smoke trail. You can see it. With a flare. They travel independent of one another, so they are not falling at the exact rate of speed, and they are not equally distant from one another. That totally discounted. The Phoenix lights were totally rock solid with each other, traveling same exact speed, same exact direction, never, one was not ahead of the other one or anything else. They were all uniform. No smoke trail at all. None. Somebody also made the comment, because stealth bomber was mentioned a couple times. It was mentioned nothing we have is silent. He said a stealth bomber is radar evasive, not sound evasive.
So you hear it.
You do at some point hear it. There was no sound with this thing at all. And it's massive. It's massive, and there was no sound.
And it's moving slow.
And it's moving very slow.
It's not like it's breaking the speed of sound, you know what I mean?
Right. The image expert that they had on this documentary, he was able, I don't know how to get into all the specifics. So this image expert was able to analyze the lights in the videos. So basically he explained that you can take the lights, and I'm not going to go into the ins and outs. He turned it into a graph, and different lights have different wavelengths, and you can determine what type of light things are because they have a specific signature. The light measurement for the lights in the videos did not match any other lights. It's just the basic. He explained it in a much longer, detailed explanation. We're not going there. And the documentary was actually based on the book written by Dr. Kitai, who's the doctor we mentioned earlier on in the episode. It is free on Prime, Amazon Prime, for you to watch for free if you're a Prime member, or you can get her book, and I'll put that in the show notes. It was interesting. The documentary wasn't the best, but I'm sure the book is very interesting. And one other thing, Mexico actually had almost an identical sighting in 2004.
So you're going to see it again.
Less than 10 years later, same type of thing was seen in Mexico.
Okay.
So that's basically it.
So what point did you go, all right, there's some stuff here? At what point?
When I started watching the documentary, some of the eyewitness accounts, some of the people, the commercial pilot who had 40 plus years of experience as a military person, he mentioned it was moving too slow to stay in the air. If it was an aircraft that we have, they have to travel at a certain rate of speed in order to take off and to stay in the air, because you have to have lift. You have to have enough wind speed over the wings to raise it up and keep it up in the air. So in order to have enough lift, you have to travel at a pretty fast speed to stay in the air. True. And this was not traveling fast. That was the one, it slowly moved, and it moved over the entire city. Northwest to southeast? Was that what the one governor said? But that's how it moved. It moved like in a straight line over like one of the most populated areas of the state of Arizona.
That's the one that got me, was that
when they knew everybody's looking. Hey, there's a comet. Hey guys, what's up? Let's fly by.
We're here.
Yeah, and it was like, that's what people said. It seemed more like it was trying to show people we're here. Look, because it had the most sighting. This was like the biggest reported sighting of anything. Still, I think.
I'll say what did it for me was when I watched all this documentaries and stuff, they're talking about like trying to debunk it. Mm-hmm. There was nothing they could do to debunk it. There's not. They've tried everything. They even tried people like faking it, but then they go, well, how other people see it then? Mm-hmm. So at that point in time, I will leave it as that was a UFO. Everybody knows it was a UFO. Anyone tries to say it wasn't, I'm open for discussion. Show me.
Yeah, I don't think this one, I think it was definitely a UFO. I don't think it can be explained in any other way.
So, happy I converted your views on this.
I did. It was funny because, I was messaging Angelina and Kelly, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this documentary sucks. Because it starts out really bad. Just stick with it if you watch it, because the information in it is the information is good.
It's like an informational video almost.
Yeah, but I'm like, okay, I'm starting to think maybe there's something to this. And then like a couple seconds later, I'm like, okay, totally converted my opinion. I totally 100% believe this was a UFO. The lights have to be attached to something to travel as uniformly as they did.
I agree with you. So with that being said, Jamie, tell everybody where they can find it.
Well, you can find us where you listen to your favorite podcast. We're on most major platforms, and you can always find us at lurkpodcast.com, where all of our episodes are listed, in addition to somebody flushing the toilet.
Taking a dupe.
In the show notes for each episode, we have links to the social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and any resource information, and also a link to our merch is located in the show notes.
Merch.
You can get yourself a nifty t-shirt.
That could fit a human-sized toddler.
Oh, goodness.
So with all that being said, like always,
keep lurking.